Okay, shall we go to chapter 2, Muchalinda Vaga. Muchalinda is the Muchalinda tree. We are happy to say we have a Muchalinda tree in front there. 2.1 Muchalinda Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying at Uruvela beside the river Naranjara at the foot of the Muchalinda tree, having just realized full enlightenment. At that time the Lord sat cross-legged for 7 days, experiencing the bliss of liberation. Now it happened that there occurred out of season a great rainstorm, and for 7 days there were rain clouds, cold winds, and unsettled weather. Then Muchalinda, the Naga king, left his dwelling place, and having encircled the Lord's body 7 times with his coils, he stood with his great hood spread over the Lord's head, thinking to protect the Lord from cold and heat, from gadflies, mosquitoes, wind, sun, and the touch of creeping things. At the end of those 7 days, the Lord emerged from that concentration. Then Muchalinda, the Naga king, seeing that the sky had cleared and the rain clouds had gone, removed his coils from the Lord's body. Changing his own appearance and assuming the appearance of a youth, he stood in front of the Lord with his hands folded together, venerating him. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. Blissful is detachment for one who is content, for one who has learned Dhamma and who sees. Blissful is non-affliction in the world, restraint towards living creatures. Blissful is passionlessness in the world, the overcoming of sensual desires, but the abolition of the conceit, I am. That is truly the supreme bliss. So when the I is eliminated, the Buddha says, this is bliss supreme. 2.2 Raja Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion, after the meal, on returning from collecting alms food, a number of monks had gathered together in the assembly hall, when this topic of conversation arose. Which of these 2 kings, friend, has greater wealth, greater possessions, greater treasury, greater territory, conveyances, army, prosperity and power? Sinia Bimbisara, the king of Magadha, or Pasenadi, the king of Kosala? And this conversation of those monks continued without coming to an end. Then the Lord, emerging from seclusion in the evening, went to the assembly hall and sat down on the seat prepared for him. Sitting there, the Lord asked the monks, "What were you talking about just now, monks, while gathered here together? What was the topic of discussion that you had left unfinished?" And they said, "After the meal, revered sir, this topic of conversation arose. Which of these 2 kings has the greater wealth? Sinia, etc., etc. Sinia Bimbisara, the king of Magadha, or Pasenadi, the king of Kosala?" This, revered sir, was our discussion that was left unfinished when the Lord arrived. Stop here for a moment. So you see, after the meal in the morning until the evening, they were discussing this hot topic. And the Buddha said, "It is not right, monks, that you, sons of good family, who have gone forth out of faith from home to the homeless state, should talk on such a topic. When you have gathered together, monks, you should do one of 2 things, either engage in talk on Dhamma or maintain noble silence." Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. Whatever bliss in the world is found in sensual pleasures, and whatever there is of heavenly bliss, these are not worth a 16th part of the bliss of cravings destruction. But worldly people, we only know sensual pleasures, so we don't know the bliss of cravings destruction. That's why worldly people always like to engage in sensual pleasures. 2.3 Danda Sutta. Danda referring here to the stick. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion, between Savatthi and the Jeta wood, a number of boys were hitting a snake with a stick. Now the Lord, having put on his robe in the forenoon and taken his bowl and outer robe, was going to Savatthi to collect alms food when he saw those boys between Savatthi and the Jeta wood hitting a snake with a stick. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. Who harms with a stick beings desiring happiness? Though he himself seeks happiness, he does not obtain it after death. Who harms not with a stick beings desiring happiness, while he himself seeks happiness, he obtains it after death. So what we do to others, we get back in return. We give suffering, we get back suffering. 2.4 Sakkara Sutta, respected. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. At that time the Lord was respected, revered, honored, venerated and given homage. And he obtained the requisites of robes, alms, food, lodgings and medicines. And the Sangha of monks was also respected. But the wanderers of other sects were not respected, revered, honored, venerated and given homage, and they did not obtain the requisites of robes, alms, food, lodgings and medicines. Then those wanderers of other sects, unable to tolerate the respect shown to the Lord and the Sangha of monks, on seeing monks in the village and in the forest, reviled, abused, provoked and annoyed them with insults and harsh words. Then a number of monks approached the Lord, prostrated themselves and sat down to one side. Sitting there, those monks said to the Lord, "At present, revered Sir, the Lord is respected, etc., and the Sangha of monks is also respected. But the wanderers of other sects are not respected, etc. And now, revered Sir, those wanderers, unable to tolerate the respect shown towards the Lord, on seeing monks, provoke and annoy them with insults and harsh words." Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. When affected by pleasure and pain in the village and forest, one should not ascribe them to oneself or another. Contacts affect one dependent on clinging. How can contacts affect one without clinging? So contacts are always there, but if we have no clinging or grasping, then it won't affect us. Just like you hear unpleasant words, if you are disturbed by them, then you have to blame yourself because you let them disturb you. But if you just ignore them, then they don't affect you. Buddha said, wise words we should listen and keep in our mind. But if people scold you and say silly things, just let it go in one ear and go out the other. Rubbish, don't keep. 2.5 Upasaka Sutta. Upasaka is a layman. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion, a certain lay follower from Ichanangala had arrived at Savatthi on some business or other. Then when that business in Savatthi had been completed, the lay follower approached the Lord, prostrated himself and sat down to one side. As he was sitting there, the Lord said to that lay follower, "At last, lay follower, you have found an opportunity to come here." And he said, "For a long time, revered Sir, I have wanted to come and see the Lord. But being involved with various affairs of business that had to be done, I was just not able to come personally and see the Lord." Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. "Blissful indeed is it to own nothing. When one is learned and has mastered the Dhamma, see how people who own things are afflicted, for people are strongly bound to people." So this man, he's a follower of the Buddha, and he wanted to see the Buddha, but he had so much commitments, so busy, not able to come. Finally, he came. It reminds me of a Brother Gore's friend. And Brother Gore said he wanted to come here to become a Samanera. He invited his friend to come. Then his friend said he was busy. Wait, in a few months' time I will come. And then 1 or 2 days ago, he heard the news that his friend suddenly passed away. Heart attack. Never expect. So a few months or so, cannot wait. Time waits for no man. So it's this type of news. It's good news. It's a Deva messenger come to the family. It's bad news. But to Brother Gore, it should be good news. In the sense that it's a waking up call. 2.6 Gabini Sutta, about the pregnant woman. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion, the young wife of a certain wanderer said to the wanderer, "Go and fetch some oil, Brahmin. I will use it at my delivery." When this was said, that wanderer replied to the woman wanderer, "But where can I get oil for you?" Stop here for a moment. So you see this, both of them are wanderers, both are ascetics. They are naked ascetics, and then they had an affair. Now the woman is pregnant and wants to get some oil. And the second time and the third time, that woman wanderer said to the wanderer, "Go and fetch some oil, Brahmin. I will use it at my delivery." At that time, at the storehouse of King Pasenadi of Kosala, there was being given to any recluse or Brahmin as much as he wanted of ghee or oil to drink, but not to take away. Then that wanderer thought, at the storehouse of King Pasenadi of Kosala, there is being given to any recluse or Brahmin as much as he wants of ghee or oil to drink, but not to take away. What if I went to the storehouse and drank as much oil as I wanted, and having returned home and vomited it up, should offer it to my wife for use at her delivery? So that wanderer, stop here for a moment. So this wanderer, he got no money to buy any oil for the wife. So he thought the only way to get it is to get it from the king's storehouse, and then later come back and vomit it out. So that wanderer went to the storehouse of King Pasenadi of Kosala, and having drunk as much oil as he wanted, he returned home, but was able neither to bring it up or to make it pass through him. Experiencing feelings that were acute, painful, sharp, and severe, he rolled about in agony. Now the Lord, having put on his robe in the forenoon and taken his bowl and outer robe, was going to Savatthi to collect alms food. And the Lord saw that wanderer rolling about in agony. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "They are happy indeed who own nothing at all. Those with highest knowledge own nothing at all. See how people who own things are afflicted, for people are strongly bound to people." So see, this is the second sutta to say people are bound to people. Those that we love are strong bonds. The Buddha said, even iron chains are not strong. Even iron chains, you can break them, you can destroy them. But bonds to the family, ties to the family are so strong, very hard to break. Laser beam also cannot break. 2.7 Eka Putta Sutta. Eka is one, Putta is son. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. At that time the dearly beloved only son of a certain lay follower had died. Then a number of lay followers with wet clothes and hair approached the Lord in the middle of the day, prostrated themselves and sat down to one side. As they were sitting there, the Lord said to those lay followers, "Why have you come here in the middle of the day, lay followers with wet clothes and hair?" When this was said, that lay follower replied to the Lord, "My dearly beloved only son, revered sir, has died. That is why we have come here in the middle of the day with wet clothes and hair." So this, stop here for a moment. So this Indian tradition, when they mourn the death of somebody, then they put water on their clothes and their hair. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "Devas and most men are truly fettered by what they hold as dear and pleasant. Worn out with grief when their dear ones die, they fall into the power of the king of death. But those who are heedful day and night, who abandon whatever is dear, the bait of death so hard to overcome, they dig up the root of grief." So you see, what we love, we want to cling to. But life is such, actually we own nothing. A lot of people, when you have a family, when we have property and all that, you're very happy, you think you own this and you own that. Actually we own nothing. We came into this world empty-handed, and we will go empty-handed. So we have to realize this. Sometimes we think because we love our family members, we don't want to hurt them. But actually, sometimes hurting them is good, so that they understand impermanence faster. Just like when I renounced, later my mother told me every day when she thought about me, every day the tears will come down. For 2 years, then after 2 years when she saw me again, then she realized I was happy as a monk, and she stopped weeping. So because of that pain, for 2 years later she let go. So in the later years of her life, she didn't cling to anything already. The most beloved son, I was the youngest, already have to let go. So she learned to let go. Nothing to cling to, which is good. So she didn't die with attachment in her mind. We have to let go sooner or later. The earlier we realize it, we suffer for a while, and then later we get used to the idea. If you all have close relatives who have died, you will notice. For example, when my father died, my mother cried so much. But after a few years, the pain it will go away. Time heals everything. So the same in life. Whatever pain we experience after a while, it's no more pain. We get used to it. 2.8 Suppavasa Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying at Kundia in the Udana wood. On that occasion, Suppavasa, the Kolian daughter, had been pregnant for 7 years, and for 7 days had experienced difficult labor. But although she experienced feelings that were acute, painful, sharp, and severe, her mind was occupied with 3 thoughts. The Lord indeed is a fully enlightened one, who teaches Dhamma for abandoning such suffering as this. The Sangha of the Lord's disciples is indeed progressing on the right path, following a path to abandon such suffering as this. Nibbana is indeed perfect bliss, where such suffering is not found. Then Suppavasa, the Kolian daughter, said to her husband, "Come, Master, go to the Lord, and approaching Him in my name, worship the Lord with your head at His feet, and ask concerning His health and well-being, fitness, strength, and comfort, saying, Suppavasa, the Kolian daughter, revered sir, worships the Lord with her head at His feet, and asks concerning His health and well-being. And also say, Suppavasa, revered sir, has been pregnant for 7 years, and for 7 days has experienced difficult labor. But although she experiences feelings that are acute, her mind has been occupied with 3 thoughts. The Lord is indeed a fully enlightened one. The Dhamma is for abandoning suffering as this. The Sangha of the Lord's disciples is progressing on the right path. Nibbana is indeed perfect bliss, where such suffering is not found. Very well, replied the Kolian son to Suppavasa, and he approached the Lord, prostrated himself and sat down to one side. Sitting there, he said to the Lord, Suppavasa, the Kolian daughter, revered sir, worships the Lord with her head at His feet. But although she experiences feelings that are acute, her mind has been occupied with 3 thoughts, etc., etc. And the Buddha said, May Suppavasa, the Kolian daughter, be well and healthy, and give birth to a healthy son. When the Lord had spoken these words, Suppavasa, the Kolian daughter, became well and healthy, and gave birth to a healthy son. The Kolian son, saying, So be it, revered sir, pleased and appreciative of the Lord's words, arose from his seat, prostrated himself to the Lord, and keeping his right side towards him, returned home. And the Kolian son saw that Suppavasa was well and healthy, and had given birth to a healthy son. On seeing this, he thought, It is indeed wonderful, it is indeed marvelous, the great supernormal potency and power of the Tathagata. When those words were spoken by the Lord, Suppavasa became well and healthy, and gave birth to a healthy son. And he was pleased and delighted, and became joyful and happy. Stop here for a moment. The Buddha says, whatever he says is true and not otherwise. Every word. So when the Buddha says, that the Supavasa be well and healthy and give birth to a healthy son. So that must come true. Then Supavasa said to her husband, "Come, master, go to the Lord, and approaching him in my name, worship the Lord with your head at his feet, and say, Supavasa, the Kolian daughter, revered sir, worships the Lord with her head at his feet, and also say, Supavasa, revered sir, was pregnant for 7 years and for 7 days experienced difficult labor. She is now well and healthy, and has given birth to a healthy son. She invites the Sangha of monks to a meal for 7 days. Please consent, revered sir, to Supavasa's providing 7 meals for the Lord together with his Sangha of monks." "Very well," replied the Kolian son to Supavasa, and he approached the Lord and said, "Supavasa, the Kolian daughter, revered sir, worships the Lord with her head at his feet, etc. She is now well and healthy, and has given birth to a healthy son. Please consent, revered sir, to Supavasa's providing 7 meals for the Lord, together with the Sangha of monks." Now at that time, a certain lay follower had invited the Sangha of monks, headed by the Buddha, to a meal the next day. And that lay follower was a supporter of the Venerable Mahamoggallana. Then the Lord called the Venerable Mahamoggallana and said, "Come, Moggallana, go to that lay follower and say, Friends, Supavasa, the Kolian daughter, invites the Sangha of monks, headed by the Buddha, to a meal for 7 days. Allow Supavasa to give her 7 meals. Your supporter can give his afterwards." "Very well, revered sir," the Venerable Mahamoggallana replied to the Lord, and he went to that lay supporter and repeated what the Lord had said. And the man said, "If, revered sir, the noble Mahamoggallana will be my surety for 3 things, for wealth, life, and faith, then let Supavasa, the Kolian daughter, give her 7 meals, and I will give mine afterwards." And Mahamoggallana the Arahant said, "For 2 of these things, friend, I will be your surety, for wealth and life. But as for faith, you are your own surety." Stop here for a moment. So, Venerable Mahamoggallana said, for these 7 days, you postpone your dana, your wealth will not diminish, and your life will not go away. That I can assure you. But your faith, you decide yourself. And then he said, "If, revered sir, the noble Mahamoggallana will be my surety for 2 things, for wealth and life, I allow Supavasa to give her 7 meals. I will give mine afterwards." Then the Venerable Mahamoggallana, having obtained the consent of that lay follower, approached the Lord and said, "That lay follower of mine has consented, revered sir. Let Supavasa, the Kolian daughter, give her 7 meals. He will give his afterwards." So Supavasa, the Kolian daughter, with her own hand, served and satisfied the Sangha of monks, headed by the Buddha, with sumptuous, solid and soft food for 7 days. And she made her child pay homage to the Lord and the whole Sangha of monks. Then the Venerable Sariputta said to the child, "Are you well, child? Are you healthy? Have you any pain?" And he replied, "How, revered Sariputta, can I be well? How can I be healthy? I have spent 7 years in a cauldron of blood." Then Supavasa, reflecting, "My son is conversing with the general of the Dhamma," was pleased and delighted, and became joyful and happy. Then the Lord said to Supavasa, "Do you wish you could have another such son?" And she said, "I wish, Lord, I could have 7 more such sons." Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "Discomfort in the guise of pleasure, the unloved in the guise of love, suffering in the guise of bliss, overpower the heedless one." So you see this Supavasa, she suffered for 7 years carrying the baby, and then 7 days of great pain, laboring. And after the son was born, she forgot all that. Women like to have a lot of children. But this sutta is a bit unusual in the sense that it says that this woman was pregnant for 7 years. And also this last part, where the son, so young, can talk to the Sariputta. I don't know how come it's like this. But this sutta is not found in other places. Don't know whether it was a later addition or what. This sutta, I don't remember. Okay, 2.9, Visakha Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time, the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the eastern park at Migara's mother's mansion. Stop here for a moment. Migara's mother is Visakha. Migara is the father-in-law. Because she was so good to the father-in-law called her mother. That's why she's called Migara's mother. On that occasion, Visakha, Migara's mother, was involved in some business with King Pasenadi of Kosala, and this the king did not conclude as she intended. So Visakha approached the Lord in the middle of the day, prostrated herself, and sat down to one side. As she was sitting there, the Lord said to her, "Well, Visakha, where have you come from in the middle of the day?" And she said, "I was involved in some business, revered sir, with King Pasenadi of Kosala, and this the king did not conclude as I had intended." Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "All subjection to another is painful, all sovereignty is bliss. Partners share in affliction, bonds indeed are difficult to overcome." So this king made some decision that Visakha was not happy with. That's why he said did not conclude as she wanted. 2.10 Badiya Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying at Anupiya in the mango orchard. At that time the Venerable Badiya, Kaligoda's son, was going into the forest to the foot of a tree or to an empty place, constantly uttered, "Ah, what bliss! Ah, what bliss!" A number of monks heard the Venerable Badiya constantly uttering, "Ah, what bliss! Ah, what bliss!" And the thought came to them, "No doubt, friend, the Venerable Badiya, Kaligoda's son or Kaligoda Putta, is dissatisfied with leading the holy life, since formerly when he was a householder, he enjoyed the bliss of royalty. And when recollecting that, on going into the forest, he utters, 'Ah, what bliss! Ah, what bliss!'" Stop here for a moment. This Badiya is the Sakyan chief. Sometimes people like to say the Buddha's father was the chief of the Sakyans. It's not true. This Badiya is mentioned in the Vinaya books as the real chief of the Sakyans and a very good friend of Anuruddha. So when Anuruddha wanted to renounce, the mother refused to give permission. He pleaded so many times or so, mother refused to give permission. Then the mother thought of a trick, because this Badiya is a very close friend of Anuruddha. Then being the king of the chief of the Sakyans, she thought Badiya will never renounce. So she told Anuruddha, the son, "If Badiya agrees to renounce with you, I will give you permission to renounce." She never expected that Badiya will renounce. So when Anuruddha went to Badiya, at first he refused. But being a very good friend, this Anuruddha constantly pleaded with him. Then he said, after much pleading, he said, 7 years time. And Anuruddha said, "Too long, 7 years." Then he said, 6 years. Slowly reduced, 5 years, 1 year. And then 1 year, so too long. He said, 11 months, 10 months, started reduce until 7 days. Then Anuruddha agreed. So after 7 days, I think he renounced. But he had so much merit. Within, I think, 3 months of renouncing, during the rains, he became an Arahant. So after he became an Arahant, he was in such bliss, always going around saying, "Ah, what bliss!" Then a number of monks approached the Lord, prostrated themselves, sat down to one side, and reported this to the Lord. Then the Lord addressed a certain monk, "Come, monk, in my name tell the monk Badiya, the teacher calls you, friend Badiya." "Very well, revered sir," the monk replied. And approaching the Venerable Badiya, Kaligoda's son, he said, "The teacher calls you, friend Badiya." "Very well, friend," the Venerable Badiya replied. And approaching the Lord, he prostrated himself and sat down to one side. The Lord then said to him, "Is it true, Badiya, that on going into the forest you utter, 'Ah, what bliss! Ah, what bliss!'" "Yes, revered sir." And the Buddha said, "But Badiya, what do you see that prompts you to do so?" And he said, "Formerly, revered sir, when I was a householder and enjoyed the bliss of royalty, inside and outside my inner apartments, guards were appointed. Inside and outside the city, guards were appointed. Inside and outside the district, guards were appointed. But revered sir, although I was thus guarded and protected, I lived fearful, agitated, distrustful and afraid. But now, revered sir, on going alone into the forest, to the foot of a tree or to an empty place, I am fearless, unagitated, confident and unafraid. I live unconcerned, unruffled, my needs satisfied, with a mind become like a deer's. Seeing this, revered sir, prompts me on going to the forest to utter constantly, "Ah, what bliss, ah, what bliss." Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance, "In whom exist no inner stirrings, having passed beyond being this or that, free from fear, blissful and sorrowless, the Devas are not capable of seeing him." It's the end of the sutta. So we finish here for tonight. Anything to discuss? This last part. Normally it's like after the Arahant attains Parinibbana, after the body has died, then the Devas cannot see him anymore. But while he's alive, they can see his body. Maybe it refers to not seeing his self anymore, he has no more self. You can. But if a person has not attained jhana, when we sit down and meditate, normally we try to discipline the mind. Because if you contemplate without a mind which is one-pointed, you are, the five hindrances are blocking you. And in the sutta, the Buddha said, as long as the five hindrances hinder us, block us, then we can never see and know things as they really are. But if you want to contemplate, say like dependent origination, don't do it while you are sitting down with your eyes closed and trying to discipline your mind. When you are free, when you are walking, when you are sitting in a bus, when you have nothing to do, not during meditation, then you can contemplate. Anytime you can reflect on the Dhamma. So vipassana, meaning contemplation, can be done any time of the day, any one of the four postures. But samatha, you can only practice when you are sitting down with your eyes closed. So the seventh factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, which is samasati, is basically vipassana. And the eighth factor, sammasamadhi, is basically samatha. So the seventh factor you can contemplate without sitting down with your eyes closed. The eighth factor you have to sit down with your eyes closed. Not exactly sure what it means, but it could be partners. Like here, it's like the boss and the subject, so they are partners in a certain sense, or even partners in a family. Then there's always conflict, so there is affliction. You can interpret in a few ways. The body is restless. Is it because of food, or is it because of... Why is the body restless? Maybe the more you sit, then it will slowly come down. Normally it's the mind that is restless, the body is not restless. Now you can practice them all the time, but the best is sitting. If you lie down, it's easy to fall asleep. If you stand, it's easy to become tired. Walk also can become tired. But say like, if you are sitting, then maybe you can practice say like anapanasati. But if your concentration is good, then you are walking also you can practice anapanasati, lying down and standing. But if your concentration is not good, you are just beginning, then you can change your object. Like when you are sitting down, if you like to practice anapanasati, you do so. Then when you are walking, you can just do simple chanting. You synchronize it with your feet. For example, if you say Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. When your right foot touches the ground, you say Namo. When your left foot touches the ground, you say Buddhaya. So if you do that, you have to always notice and try to synchronize. The mind does not run away so easily. And even when you are lying down, if you are afraid you are going to fall off into sleep, then you keep chanting. And some people, of course, you do chanting also, you still fall asleep. Then in which case, you chant plus move your finger. And Namo, you move your right finger. Buddhaya, you move your left finger like that. As long as you are moving your finger, you won't fall asleep. The moment you stop moving, you fall asleep. Yeah, if you can practice, provided you have the strength of mind and the determination. A lot of people, for a lot of people, you don't seem to have the urgency. You think you still got many years to go. If a person like them, they would have attained the fourth jhana. If they have attained the fourth jhana, the mind is very calm, attain the imperturbable state. And also, there is a sentence in the sutta that says that this satipatthana is a characteristic of samadhi. Something like that. So once you have attained the jhanas, then your satipatthana is like automatic. Your mindfulness is because your mind is very clear, and you have mindfulness most of the time.
For a person, especially monks, who are seriously in spiritual to practicing this Udana practice?
Dhutanga practice, it depends on which Dhutanga practice and whether the monk is ready for it. Generally, when a monk is new, say like the first 5 years, probably is not good, not advisable to practice the Dhutanga, because you have to, the foundation, you have to build up the foundation first. Foundation is to learn the suttas and the Vinaya well, every day to study the suttas and the Vinaya. And then after 5 years, when the monk is knowledgeable in the suttas and the Vinaya, then he can concentrate on practice. At that time, then only he can do whatever Dhutanga he wants. But to start off too early is not advisable. Even meditation, in the beginning, the first 5 years, monks should not meditate too much effort, because the first 5 years, the priority is to learn the suttas and the Vinaya, and to serve the senior monks, and to learn a lot of things. Then when you have finished 5 years, you are well trained, and then only you concentrate on practice. Should not be too early, because as I mentioned the other day, like a Kung Fu pupil, those in the Shaolin monastery, first 1 year he does nothing but the horse stance, Mapo, Chak Mapo. Then nothing but Chak Mapo. That is the foundation. Without a strong legs, can easily fall. So in the same. Okay. Malaysia? Can, because the Dhutanga practices in the Theravada, they're supposed to be 13. And there are things like only begging for your food, eating 1 meal a day. But also you must see, as I mentioned, when you have finished 5 years of training, then certain of these things you can do. But also, if you, some of these things is suitable if you live alone. But for example, if you stay in a monastery like this, there is physical work to be done. For example, our water comes from the hill. So if anything wrong with the water, you have to go up. So if you practice certain things like eating 1 meal a day, then you won't be able to do physical work in the monastery. Before I came here, for more than 10 years, I was eating 1 meal a day. After I came here, I found that a lot of physical work to do, especially in the beginning. In the beginning, when there's a lot of work to do, very few people want to come. Even our Richard came here at that time very strong. After doing some work, he got so frightened, such heavy work, he didn't come back for a few years. Later only, he came back. Other people also like that. There were 2 brothers from Alusta, very eager, came here. They stayed 2 or 3 days. After that, never come back again, because they complained to other people, the work so heavy here. So in the beginning, the work was very heavy. But now, there's much less work. But still, things like going up the hill. Last time in the beginning, our water source, after we clean it today, tomorrow, the water doesn't come. And we have to go up again. Every few days, we go up again. So very strenuous. If you take 1 meal a day, you cannot stand. So you might have to use your wisdom. Don't be too eager to practice these 2 tangas. You have to know the priority now in the monastery is to, as a young monk, is to serve the senior monk, to do our duties. That is the priority. Later, when a monk lives alone, he can do whatever he likes. When we stay together, I must realize our duties.
And this in relation to active meditation, what's the effects of that? Contemplating the sensation of heat and movement rather than
If you find that suitable, you can practice it. But in the suttas, the Buddha never mentioned this. In the suttas, if a monk practices anapanasati when sitting down, the Buddha's monks, they practice very hard. And they try to maintain their mindfulness 24 hours a day. And they keep to the same object. If they are contemplating the breath, then they keep to the same object. If they are doing chanting on the 32 parts of the body, then they keep to the same object. But for lay people, you don't have much time to practice, and you can't build up much concentration. So you can change your object. And the easier one, when you are walking, is to do chanting, as I mentioned just now. You synchronize your chanting with your feet. Easier, much easier than...
So, ideally, I'm supposed to contemplate the movement when we walk.
No, I said that is for monks. If you can do that 24 hours a day, you're supposed to do that. But for lay people, I say you can't do. So you change your object, whichever suits you. Yes, yes. Okay, shall we stop here?